Hey there. Ready for a story that might just redefine what's possible? Today, we're going to go deep into the journey of Marcus Carter. He built a multi-million-dollar tech empire after starting from, well, prison.
A real testament to second chances, wouldn't you say? We're going to unpack how he went from serving time for armed robbery to becoming a tech CEO, all based on an episode from the Extreme Life Makeovers, From Broke to Billionaire podcast.
Okay, so the episode is called He Went from Prison to $10 Million. Here's How. And it gets right into the nitty-gritty. Marcus, he doesn't shy away from describing his rock bottom. Addiction, losing custody of his child, even a letter from his mother expressing, her disappointment, heavy stuff.
What I find really interesting is how prison, a place most would consider the end of the line, actually became Marcus's turning point. He talks about discovering personal development books, even teaching himself to code, using a smuggled tablet. It speaks to the human drive to find a way forward, even in the darkest of places.
That's where the coding comes in, huh? I'm curious. For someone with zero tech background, what does that even look like? What was he actually learning to do?
It's likely he started with the basics of web development. Languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the foundational elements for building any website. Imagine him in his cell, hunched over this tablet, learning to create something from nothing. Pretty incredible.
Wow, that's wild. It's like he built his own escape route, but with code instead of a tunnel.
Exactly. And it wasn't just coding. There's this pivotal moment in the podcast where Marcus describes meeting an older inmate who became a mentor. The advice this mentor gave him, well, it really shifted his whole perspective.
Well, let me guess. Some tough love, get your act together kind of pep talk.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
The inmate told him, your past ain't your prison unless you let it be. Simple but profound.
Right.
That idea, it became a guiding principle for Marcus. He decided his past wouldn't define him.
Okay, but going from prison to the tech world, those are some seriously different worlds. How did he even begin to bridge that gap after he got out?
Well, he was released after 8 years. And let's be real, society isn't always welcoming to ex-convicts. He talks about taking on menial jobs, facing rejection from banks and investors. They saw his past and said, nope. There were times he even had to sleep in his car.
Man, talk about an uphill battle. It would have been so easy to just give up at that point. But I guess that's where the whole reinvention thing kicks in.
Absolutely. He had this vision, and he was determined to make it a reality. Starting with a small step, he landed a gig building a website for a local food truck, charging just $200. It was a tiny project, but, it got the ball rolling.
So he started small but thought big, like a classic entrepreneur.
Right.
But I'm guessing running a tech business, especially with people who have faced similar challenges, adds a whole other layer of complexity.
That's where his story gets really fascinating. He built a company called Rebound Tech, specifically focused on employing other ex-cons. He knew firsthand the struggles they faced and wanted to create opportunities where others wouldn't.
That's amazing. But how do you even start to build trust and create a stable work environment when everyone is coming from such a difficult background?
Marcus is very open about the challenges: building trust, managing potential relapses, fostering a sense of ownership within his team. These weren't just business problems, they were deeply human issues he had to address.
So what did he do? Was it all about strict rules and second chances? I'm genuinely curious how he approached it.
He implemented some really innovative strategies. For example, he did daily check-ins with his employees, not just about work, but about life. It created a safe space for them to share their struggles without shame. He also introduced a profit-sharing model, giving everyone a stake in the company's success.
Wait, profit sharing, that's bold, especially for a startup. It shows he truly believed in empowering his team, not just using their labor. I'm already hooked on his leadership style.
It's about more than just giving orders. He's created a culture of mutual support and shared success. Think about it. In just a few years, he went from building a $200 website to running a company valued at $10 million. The guy is clearly doing something right.
Okay, so he went from prison to a multi-million-dollar tech company. It's mind-blowing. But this is a deep dive, so we need to go beyond just the wow factor. What are the concrete takeaways here? What can we, the listeners, learn from his journey and apply to our own lives?
That's where Marcus's no BS rules for radical reinvention come in. He distilled his experience into these bite-sized pieces of wisdom, offering a framework for anyone seeking change, even if they're not starting from such a difficult place.
Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with rule number 1. What's the foundation of this whole reinvention thing?
His first rule is simple but powerful. Own your story. Don't hide it, sell it. He believes our past experiences, even the negative ones, can be a source of strength, a unique selling proposition.
So instead of trying to bury the past, he's saying, use it, embrace it. That's pretty counterintuitive, especially in a world where everyone tries to present a perfect
It's
image.
about authenticity. And it clearly works for him. He even uses his prison time as an opening anecdote in his TED Talks. Imagine the impact of that.
Wow, talk about owning your story. It's like he's saying, this is where I came from, and look at me now.
Yeah,
I bet that grabs people's attention and makes them want to hear more.
it definitely does. So rule number one is about embracing your past, even the messy parts. But how do you actually start moving forward? Where do you even begin?
That's a great question. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you're trying to make a big change. So what's rule number 2? What's the first step?
Rule number two is all about taking action. Start small, think big. Marcus reminds us that even small projects can be the foundation for significant achievements. Remember that $200 website? That was his stepping stone to multi-million-dollar contracts. It's a powerful reminder that we shouldn't underestimate the power of starting small and gradually scaling up.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Sometimes the hardest part is just taking that first step, however small it may seem. Okay, I'm ready for rule number 3. What's the next piece of the puzzle?
Rule number three is where things get really interesting. Find your cell. Marcus uses this analogy of being trapped in a cell and asks, what's the one thing you do if that were your only option? For him, it was coding.
Hold on, I need to wrap my head around this cell thing. It sounds a little, well, prison-like. How does that translate to something positive and actionable for the average person?
It's about identifying your passion, your unique skill or talent, the thing you're drawn to, even in the most challenging circumstances. It's about focusing on that one thing and honing it relentlessly, even when faced with adversity.
Okay, so it's not about being literally trapped, but about finding that thing you'd obsess over no matter what. Kind of like that Japanese concept of ikigai. Finding purpose at the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where your passion, skills, and potential income align. That's your cell, your zone of genius.
I love that. He's essentially saying, find that thing that makes you feel truly alive, that thing you could spend hours doing, even if no one was watching. So, rule number 4, what's next in this blueprint for reinvention? Okay, so we've got own your story, start small, think big, and find your cell. Those are some solid building blocks. But even with the right mindset and a clear vision, I mean, we all need support along the way.
Right.
I'm guessing that's where rule number 4 comes in.
You got it. Rule number 4 is all about building your tribe. Marcus emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with people who believe in your vision, who will champion your success, and offer support during tough times. It's about creating a network of allies who will lift you up and keep you accountable.
That makes so much sense. It's like saying you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to level up, surround yourself with people who inspire you and push you to be your best. But I'm curious, who were the first people in Marcus's tribe? I mean, coming straight out of prison, it's not like he had a built-in network of, tech entrepreneurs.
That's where his resourcefulness shines through. His first hire was actually his parole officer's nephew. It speaks to the power of leveraging even the most unexpected connections and building relationships that can support your growth.
That's a great reminder to never underestimate the power of your network, even if it seems unconventional. It's about building genuine connections and finding people who resonate with your vision. Okay, we're up to the 5th and final rule. What's the last piece of advice from Marcus?
Rule number 5 is crucial, especially in today's fast-paced world. Adapt or die. Marcus learned this the hard way during the COVID-19 pandemic. His company, which was focused on developing apps, suddenly faced a major downturn. He had to pivot quickly, shifting his focus to AI to stay afloat.
Whoa, that's a huge shift. Talk about adapting on the fly. It's a good reminder that even the best laid plans can be disrupted. And the ability to adapt is essential for survival, not just in business, but in life, too.
Absolutely. This rule isn't just about responding to crises. It's about having a growth mindset, being open to new possibilities, and having the courage to adjust course when circumstances demand it. It's about constantly learning and evolving, because the only constant is change.
Okay, so we've got Marcus's 5 no BS rules for radical reinvention. Own your story, start small, find your cell, build your tribe, and adapt or die. They're concise, actionable, and clearly they've been proven effective in his life. But let's be real, even with the best advice, there will always be doubters and setbacks. How did Marcus deal with the naysayers, especially those closest to him? I'm curious to know how he navigated those relationships.
He actually had a rather unconventional approach to dealing with doubters, particularly his family members. Instead of trying to convince them or win them over, he used their doubt as fuel to prove them wrong.
So he didn't waste time trying to change their minds. That's a bold move, especially when it comes to family. We often feel the need to seek their approval or validation.
He knew actions speak louder than words. He even shared a story about his father, who predicted he'd be back in jail by the age of 30. Pretty harsh thing to say.
Right. That's gotta sting. But I can see how that kind of negativity could also light a fire under you. So what did he do? Did he confront his father? Try to reason with him?
He did something much more impactful. When Marcus was featured in Forbes magazine, he mailed a copy to his father. It was his way of saying, "See, I told you I could do it."
I love it. It's like, mic drop. He let his success speak for itself. It's a powerful message about focusing your energy on proving doubters wrong through your achievements, rather than wasting time trying to change their minds.
Exactly. And it reinforces the idea that sometimes the best response to negativity is simply to rise above it and let your actions speak for themselves.
Now, I know during the original podcast, a listener called in with a question that I think a lot of us can relate to. They asked, what's the #1 mistake people make when starting over? I'm curious to hear Marcus's take on that. What did he say?
His answer was really insightful. He said the biggest mistake people make is trying to erase the past. Instead of viewing their past as something to hide or be ashamed of, they should embrace it as part of what makes them unique and resilient.
It's like that Leonard Cohen lyric, there's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. It's about recognizing that our imperfections and past experiences are part of what makes us whole.
Exactly. Marcus even went on to say that his CEO bio starts with ex-con, CEO, game changer. He's not shying away from his past, he's owning it and using it as part of his brand.
It's a bold move, and it clearly works for him. It's almost like he's saying, yes, I made mistakes, but look at me now. I've learned from them, and I'm using my experiences to make a positive impact. It's incredibly inspiring.
It really is. It goes back to his first rule. Own your story. Don't try to be someone you're not. Embrace your experiences, both the good and the bad, and use them to fuel your journey forward.
So to sum it up, Marcus's story is a testament to the power of human resilience, the ability to rise above adversity and create a life of meaning and purpose. Regardless of where you started, his journey is a reminder that we all have the potential for radical reinvention.
It's not about trying to erase the past, but about learning from it and using it as a springboard for growth. It's about identifying our passions, honing our skills, building a supportive network, and most importantly, having the courage to own our stories and embrace our journey.
His story really highlights the fact that our past doesn't have to define us. It's about what we choose to do with those experiences, how we learn from them, and how we use them to shape our future. But how do we take all of this and make it real in our own lives? That's what I want our listeners to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Marcus Carter's story, it's clear he's not just some, outlier, some exception to the rule. His journey from prison to tech success holds some serious lessons for all of us, no matter where we're starting from.
His story really challenges the notion that our past defines our future. It's not about where you've been, but about where you're going and the choices you make along the way.
Exactly. It's like he's flipped the script on the whole redemption narrative. He's not asking for forgiveness. He's taking ownership, using his past as fuel, and building something incredible in the process. It's inspiring, to say the least.
It really highlights the power of mindset. He could have easily succumbed to the stigma, the self-doubt, the feeling that his past had closed all doors. But he chose a different path. He chose reinvention.
And he did it by following his own playbook, his no BS rules for radical reinvention. Just to recap for our listeners, those rules are: own your story, start small, but think big, find your cell, build your tribe, and adapt or die.
These aren't just catchy slogans, they're practical steps that anyone can take. Regardless of their background or goals, it's about taking ownership, taking action, and surrounding yourself with the right people.
And, most importantly, it's about being willing to adapt, to evolve, to embrace change as an opportunity for growth. That's something I think we can all learn from, no matter what stage of life we're in.
So as we conclude this deep dive, I want to circle back to that powerful question Marcus posed. What is your cell? What's that unique talent, skill, or passion that's calling out to you?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's about identifying that thing that lights you up, that thing you'd pursue even if you were facing, seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
What would you do if you had no other choice but to succeed? What's that thing that keeps you going, even when the going gets tough?
That's what we want you, the listener, to think about. Take some time to reflect on what your sell might be. What's your unique contribution to the world?
Once you identify your sell, consider how you can nurture it, how you can leverage it to create positive change in your own life, and perhaps even in the world around you.
That's it for our deep dive today. We hope you found Marcus Carter's story as thought-provoking and inspiring as we did. Remember, the power to reinvent yourself, to create a life of meaning and purpose lies within each of us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible.